So it's my pleasure now to introduce Dr. Emilyn Sheffield. Emilyn is a professor of recreation and parks management at California State University, Chico, where more than 500 students are preparing for careers in hospitality, parks, recreation, and tourism. Since 1986, she's worked with partners to connect people to the parks and special places that enhance their lives. Her applied research projects and high-energy presentations help natural resource leaders and their partners respond more effectively to changing demographic and lifestyle trends. She's currently investigating community engagement, volunteerism, and conservation stewardship with the University Service Learning throughout California. Carol and I had the opportunity to hear Emilyn at a geotourism conference we both attended. We thought that her comments were pretty spot on for our community, and hence our invitation to her to join us. I want to let you know that she brought 20 students with her. Some of you are aware, some of you are not, and I see some of their faces out here. These students range in age from 18 to 21 plus. They are staying in our community for 2 days, and they're going to, in essence, give us a report card on Saturday morning on their impressions. So how did we market to their demographic? Did we meet their expectations? Where do we have work to do? And they're going to provide that report to us on Saturday morning at 9:30. Do I have that time right? Yes. 9:30 at the LTVA in Tahoe Chamber Building. So if you're interested in coming and hearing their report, you are more than welcome to join us. We would love to have you do so. And I'd just like to, since I have a moment, to say thank you all students for being here. We really appreciate it. So with that, I want to remind you we have a BAM when Emilyn is done today in Planet Hollywood, or Hard Rock, excuse me, Hard Rock, and ask Emilyn to come and join us. Thank you.
Well, I am absolutely delighted to be with you, and I thank you so much for inviting us here. Before I begin my remarks, who ended up with the remote? There we go. Could I have the Chico folks, the Chico team, stand up, please, and face this audience? And you're very right to applaud them, and y'all can stand up, thank you for humoring me. You're very right to applaud them, because these are the young people that are going to lead us into the future, and they're the ones that are, I believe, going to save us from ourselves. And that is essentially the remark, or the takeaway for today. I look at future from a very different point of view, and by future I mean way in some form or fashion to have an influence on how it turns out for you. It'll influence how it turns out to you by how they choose or don't choose to come to your destination. It'll play out by how they choose or do not choose to purchase real estate. It'll play out in how they choose or not choose to send their children to college, thereby fueling the next round of prosperity. It will play out in how they choose or don't choose to vote. It will play out in how they choose or don't choose to address the conditions of infrastructure, environment, people in place in California. So I take a 50,000-foot view. And if that won't work for you, now's a great time to get up and slide out. Because I still have to master. I'm a baby boomer. That means mask is off, mask is on, there's the clicker. That's not it. That's it. So my assertion is really a simple one. Changes in the size, composition, and choices of the population will determine our future, all of our future, in all of our sectors, whether they're mountains or deserts, shore or central valley. I'm going to start looking very briefly, give you a quick cut from the census data that's starting to roll out and will continue to roll out, because it is the pulse of the country, which is the pulse of the Consumer Confidence Index. It is the pulse of the Dow Jones. It is the pulse and the driver of our collective hopes and dreams and economic aspirations. So here's what's happening in a census sort of a way. Since my hands are full, would somebody open this for me? Proud Chico dad. Generally, the population for a developed country, we continue to increase in population. The darker the hue, the greater the increase. So you'll see that the big winner in the population race is in fact Nevada. It is projected to continue the rate of growth it has enjoyed or absorbed for the last 2 decades, for the next 3 decades. Now that growth is all at the other end of the state, illustrating right away the difference of state level numbers. Nevertheless, your market is growing in your Rocky Mountain states. Nevada is growing, and California, while it did not increase dramatically, it's still the 800-pound gorilla in the West and is still the major market for your area. If you look at what happened nationally in terms of population and race and ethnicity, the screen's a little hard to read, but I will give you the real big bottom line in another slide. Just look at the darker the hue is where the growth is. The population density, the darker the hue, the more densely populated. And so your big California wraparound there to help you out. And who's picking up politically and who's losing politically? Texas, the big winner in the population pickup game. The congressional seat game, California staying steady, and your 3 buffer states, your 2 buffer states and yourselves, all picking up seats in the apportionment game. If you look at the changing face of America, this is by segment, up now to 50 million, or 16% of the US population, more than half of the total growth between 2000 and 2010, the Latino or Hispanic segment of our population. A 47% increase from 10 million to almost 15 million, grew faster than any other racial or ethnic group in the United States, Asian American segment. Almost all of whom, because remember in 2000, again in 2010, you could check 2 or more races, almost all of whom reported some other race were Latino. Non-Hispanic white alone up 1%. Now that is your core market, it always has been. Up 1%, non-Hispanic white nationally. All other combinations together up 29%. So if you are, I don't care how well you do your business, if you are dealing with a shrinking share, you must change. And you are dealing with a shrinking share of your core market segment. Nearly half the West population now, other than Anglo, and at 23.3 million, California having the largest minority population in 2010, Nevada with the fastest growing. Whether we like it or not, I actually like it. We are at the center of the most massive change in the place and face of America that we have seen, maybe since 1910, and then that was a back east thing. So we are on the leading, bleeding edge of opportunity, and whether we lead or bleed, we'll go back to the decisions we make. Almost all of this population is now urban. In 100 years, we've gone from being 20% urban, 80% rural, to being 85% urban or suburban in the western United States, 15% rural. So all of that stuff that seems okay to you as people who elect to live in mountain areas, will be kind of scary to urban people. Now the question is, can you afford to thrive on 15% of the population? If the answer is yes, don't change. If the answer is no, maybe think about it. These lives, all of our lives, completely transformed by technology. And this has been the great American innovation since the beginning of time. We can take anything and make it better, smaller, and cheaper in terms of our innovation. Well, then we outsource the manufacturing of it, but nevertheless, smaller, faster, cheaper is the great technology litany of the century. So now what we have is extremely powerful, personal, portable communication devices. And so it's no surprise that everything is going to move mobile. It'll move mobile into handheld telephones for people who can see the screens. It'll move mobile into iPads to everybody else. iPads are just baby boomer smartphones. That's it. That's all. We'll get the colloquial implant. We'll be good. Now, so with these new tools come new control. And we are going to see, if the real message I took away from the previous speaker's comments is that it's all true somewhere, and it's all about a widening set of gaps. And so it is a more diverse people, it is a more diverse climate, it is a more diverse weather pattern, it is a more diverse set of channels. And you bet Groupon is a distribution system, whether we want it to be or not. You bet viral video is a distribution system, whether we want it to be or not. It just happens to be one we can't do a damn thing about. So the proliferation of social media, the availability of social media, the shift in who gets to make meaning is the real driver of the proliferation of this. We are no longer in charge of our message. The best we can hope to do is enable the message makers to carry the right message, the best message, the appealing message. We are no longer in control of them, and that is a brutal, tough thing to have to absorb. Then the third piece, and we don't talk about it much, but it's going to play out dramatically in California. And I personally think it's likely to give us our best hope for a better future, is the growing intertwining of environmental and social justice. Now, for about 40 years, the environmental movement was going this way, the social equity movement was going this way. And lo and behold, at the millennium, those two forces came back together. They are now braided. They are never going to be unbraided again. And that may be our best opportunity to move forward in a concerted way that preserves the triple bottom line of sustainability that really matters most. So the growing alliance of environmental and social justice. And then the continuous sun-seeking patterns of the American people. If you look between now and 2030, almost 88% of the net population growth in the United States is going to happen in the South or the West. Now the South is going to get the big pickup because it's dropping down from the northern states. But the West is still going to see enormous continued growth. We're going to continue to see a lot of aging in place and depopulation in the Midwest and certain parts of the industrial Northeast. So all of it's going to continue to come our way, come our way. Is it going to come to California? Maybe not so much because of the cost of housing and the sort of weirdness of the economy. But is it going to come to that second set of states in? You bet. Arizona, Nevada, Idaho. Growth projected into the future. So what's going to happen in California? Well, let's look at California between now and 2040 when we're projected to hit the 50 million mark. We're at about 37 million now. We're adding about 8 to 10 million people a year between 2000 and 2020, recession or not. If the economy's boomy, we add 10 million. If the economy's bad, we add 8. We're adding about 500,000, 400,000 to 500,000 people a year. That's a city the size of Sacramento every single year in California for the next 20 years. Most of that growth is going to happen in the Central Valley and the Inland Empire, so 6 million of the next 10 million people are going to go in those 5 Southern California counties. Probably two of the next 4 million to come up the Central Valley. That makes you the nearby nature for the Central Valley. So millions of people now going to be within that driving zone for that weekend getaway, that last minute decision. Do I go north, do I go south, or do I go east, do I go west? Because I'm in the Central Valley. I can get anywhere in 2 hours. By 2020, the 3 racial ethnic groups in this state are going to be Latino at 41%, Anglo at 37%, Asian at 12.5%. That is remarkable nationally because of the big Asian piece. And the relationship between entertainment and Asian and gaming and Asian is something that actually works to your advantage. The one where we're going to have to do some work together is within the Latino community. There's a lot really, really positive within that community about the things we're interested in. Snow, not so much. So it's good you have 4 seasons in light of the growth. By 2020, seniors will increase by 70%, 75% in the state. So we're still younger than average, and we'll be still younger than average in California. But we are aging, and when you look at participation rate from about 65 on, baby boomers have been an odds-beating group since the beginning, but they may not totally beat the odds on this one. A little early to tell. They'll probably go harder longer, but even we're starting to look down a little bit and start thinking about how much that knee replacement's going to cost, and don't we really want to keep the teeth we've got? And the minute people start getting conservative, they stop thinking vertical and they start thinking horizontal. And that's not particularly good for what y'all do. Right now, not at some point in the future, right now, today, 70% of all the people in California the age of 18 are from racially or ethnically diverse backgrounds. 70%. Are 70% of the young kids in your Learn to Ski programs from racially and ethnically diverse backgrounds? If not, you're losing share. 75% increase in senior adults. What are we going to do with these 2 massive movements at either end of the age cohort? And then one that we really never stop to think about in California, and I apologize to the Nevada folks here, I don't have comparable data for Nevada, but I do think it's instructive to think about a third of the population growth in California between 2000 and 2010 is coming from immigration or people from other states coming into California. That means just in the last 10 years, 1/3 of the net new growth has no idea who and what until we tell them. Now with your new branding campaign, that's really quite good. So what does all this suggest to you? I know what it suggests to me. I asked you what it suggests to you for your business, for your community, for your family, for your future. It suggests three big things to me. And I would, in a longer period of time, it's not that everybody in America isn't important, because everybody in America is important. But from a what we're going to do together point of view, there are 3 segments that I think are really worth thinking about. First thing is to recapture the baby boomers. We had them early, and then we are them, who are we kidding? We merrily went on our way, and now it's time to get them back and reconnect them with the values that we espoused in the 70s. Peace, love, harmony, nature. That is a core offering that you can make available to baby boomers as they struggle to connect, balance, make sense of their lives, and stay in touch with their oh so much younger children and grandchildren. So that's a real opportunity. They're the ones who brought us equity, environmental values into the sort of consciousness of the country. They're the parents of millennials, and I've already told you, millennials are going to save us all. So who are they? Nationally, about 78 million. They were born between 1946 and 1964. They're what's behind that 75% increase in seniors. Where do they live? Well, they live throughout the United States. They certainly live throughout California, but we're starting to see them drift toward the recreation and retirement communities, the amenity-rich communities when they can. Now, right now, everybody's underwater, so they can't do much moving around. But that will change, and you will see all that pent-up demand coming toward you. And you'll see it right after. How many of you have college-age kids? Okay, you'll see it right after your college-age kid doesn't sidle up to you and say, Mom, Dad, I'm thinking about doing a master's degree. Because when they say, Mom, Dad, I'm thinking about doing a master's degree, what they're saying is, Mom, Dad, the market stinks, and I'm scared to go out there, so I'm going to get another degree. And when that changes, and all of Rolf's indicators line up with you as well, then we're done. We're out of the woods. And we'll start selling real estate, and we'll start moving real estate again. Why do they intrigue me? Well, I am one, so that intrigues me a little bit. But they also intrigue me because they're a very large cohort, and they're the only cohort that really has a bunch of free time and a bunch of money. And that's a good thing when you are a discretionary product like y'all have here. They're also big enough, and they're uniform enough, and they're monolithic enough, and they're Anglo enough, quite frankly, to carry us until we figure out what we're going to do. So we can get by with baby boomers, but there's such a big force right now, they're totally, completely masking the erosion underneath in your market. They are so big, they are completely masking the erosion underneath your market. If we had baby boomers acting proportionally to the market, Ross figures would be a whole different ballgame, and they'd be way, way worse. Where are they psychologically? Well, if we're lucky, we reconnect them with the values of their youth, and we plug into this business about nostalgia, because we're in prime nostalgia mode right now. Our links to nature were very different linkages. They were unstructured play. We all had empty lots. We all played the creeks. We all picked up the critters. We all turned over the rocks. We did lots of camps and organizational stuff. We did lots of nature-based vacations. Those are our touchstones with nature. That means there are connections back to this generation with the product you have here. Their language of leisure is English and print. It's not that we can't check email, it's just hard. We still print it. We do, you know you do. If it's important, you print it. You know you do. Okay, our digital and social media are basically web, email, and Facebook, which means everybody else younger than us goes somewhere else. In terms of amenities, because you asked me to talk about amenities, activities, how to connect. The amenities, we need to feel special. We've been special all our lives. Make us feel special, we will be loyal. We need to be comfortable, we need to be pampered. We kind of want to learn something. We don't want to work real hard at it, but we want to learn something. And we really are kind of in savor mode. We're big into food, we're big into entertainment, our kind of entertainment. We're big into nostalgia. You know this, it's you. It's you and everybody you know. The difference is they can carry us till we figure it out. Ways to connect. In terms of accommodations, I tell you what, I hope my mother never has to choose between me and the dog, or I'm dead. It's got to be pet friendly or you're going to lose boomers. They don't go without their pets anymore. It tends to still be a couple or a two-gen thing. They travel with their kids a lot. They travel with the grandkids a lot. And this notion of connecting is really important to them, but I think it doesn't connect at the level of a bathroom. So I think we're talking about sort of 2-bedroom, 2-bath combos if we're really going to serve this market well. In terms of development and redevelopment, they're going to be into hotels, not motels. They're going to be in interval ownership, not outright whole ownership. They're going to rent, but they're going to rent homes in cabins, not condos. Mostly. And I think you've got something to say about single and multi-room units because of how they're traveling. So a couple of things to think about. Now, you know your area better than I do. You know your market better than I do. You know your redevelopment authorities better than I do. But some things to think about. We really want to grab this group before they move out from under us. Second big thing is to design for families with children, and particularly in this state, to design for Latino families with children. So who are they? Latinos, in this case, nearly 40% of California, mostly from the state of the country of Mexico and other Latin American states and nations. They're fueling all the population growth in California, where they tend to live statewide now, but still concentrated in the gateway cities, Southern California, Central Valley, the Inland Empire. Why do they intrigue me? Huge market with increasing education levels and increasing income. So it's a market on the make. Shared values, big values about family and nature, and we can connect with that and tap into that. And also a very generous market segment. They're going to be kind of kind to us and help us figure it out until we figure it out. And while you really never get a second chance to make a first impression, it's a generally hospitable and kind approach to life and people, and we can work together. Where are they psychologically? Primacy of family. Multi-generation, regardless of how long a Latino family has been in the country, primacy of family stays really, really solid. Early in the assimilation curve, first, second generation, maintaining cultural links, very, very important, and learning how, if in the recent first generation immigration phase, learning how to adapt to a new country. Big in terms of leisure choices in psychology. Links to nature are through relaxation with family and safe places for their children to play. The language of leisure is essential to understand in the Latino market. It's not that there are not lots and lots of bilingual Latinos. There are tons of bilingual Latinos. But the breadth of the family and the commitment to the entire family being engaged is such that the language of leisure is Spanish. The language of home is Spanish. When you're in the discretionary travel market, it always pays to be attentive to the language spoken at home when you're in cultures that travel together. Now in San Francisco, 46% of the people living in San Francisco today speak a language other than leisure at home. I mean, a language other than English at home. So their language of leisure, their language of choice, their language of family is something other than English. What must you do about that? Their digital and social media varies. The handheld cellular device is essentially the entry-level computer. And so that's going to tie in with this general push toward mobile in some real powerful ways. In terms of amenities, family-friendly is the big word, bilingual signage, bilingual information, and not just translated, but truly bilingual culturally and inclusively. Big focus on nature and kids. The active recreation needs to be matched with passive recreation opportunities within these communities. And it's not so much that recreation, it's more a matter of recreation style. So what we're seeing across outdoor recreation and leisure is this tremendous increase in style. So we used to have hikers, single track, long distance hikers. And we built our little trail system accordingly. Now we have hikers, we have promenaders, we have strollers, as in strolling side by side. So it's about recreation style. We have walkers. All of them doing the same thing, but doing it from a different style point of view. Finally, how do we connect how do we use outdoor recreation or nature to connect through to this market? We do it through children, and we do it through nature and kids, through unstructured play, learning, and an emphasis on healthy. All of those big drivers within the community. In terms of accommodation, generally incomes are rising, affordability is still a big important component, and family and extended family being sort of the notion about accommodations. For redevelopment and repurposing, I think it's really, this is where you go to people who specialize in redevelopment that responds to the needs of this emerging demographic segment. and you work with them, my gut hunch is kitchens and bathrooms, again, are going to need to be rethought along lines that are more supportive of larger family groups. And then the third segment to get, and this is the one, if we can't do anything else, this is the one we do together, and that's to capture college-going millennials. They're focused, they're terrific, and they're soon to be the high-income traveler of tomorrow. They just started the travel of tomorrow today. They're the travel of tomorrow today, they can only spend $200 for the weekend per head. Now, like that rate, but if I can only spend $200 per person per weekend, and I'm going to remain loyal to my early choices my entire life, as we suspect this generation will be, you have got to find a way to catch them now. Because if you don't, those loyalty patterns are going to go somewhere else. So who are they? They're larger than the baby boom. Hear my crickets? That's the... Can some millennial turn this thing off? That's the 25-minute mark. They're larger than the baby boom, numerically. They're very, very diverse. And this is why I think they're such a generation to watch. They were going to help us figure out how to move into a truly more inclusive, more expansive, prosperous, multicultural America. Where do they live? Primarily in metro and suburban areas, Southern California. Why do they intrigue me? Well, they're our future leaders. They're going to be our high-income, high-education people of tomorrow. And I think they can save us from ourselves. Psychologically, they're hopeful, but they're worried. Their links to nature are mediated, and this is essential. None of these guys and gals have any first-hand experience with nature anymore. What they know about the nature they saw on the Nature Channel, and that's really scary. 24/7 footage of a big hurricane or a big forest fire or all of those big media events that the media machine now requires to keep us from switching the channel is laying down generation after generation of generation of fear factor about nature. But they're mediated links. So if we think these young people are going to drop all their technology and go off into the pristine sort of navel-gazing nature of our youth, we're very, very wrong. The language of their leisure is digital. If it is not digital, it's not important. If it's on paper and it isn't digital, it doesn't matter and it didn't hurt. Just that simple. Don't have to like it to recognize the language of leisure of this crowd is digital, and the digital and social media are ubiquitous, and the minute boomers move into the space, they move out of it. Okay? Don't like your kids' tattoos, give up your jeans, it all goes back to normal. Millennials, in terms of amenities, it has got to be wired and it has got to be plugged, and by plugged I mean electrical. Okay? This is a generation that grew up on things that had cords. So we've got to respond to that. This is also a generation that responds favorably to alternative transportation or mass transit at the destination. Now, they may still drive in, but they would really, really like it a lot if they could park the car and not have to move it again. On-site restaurants, important. Easy, important. They're overscheduled already and they're not yet 30. Activities, active recreation, gotta have nightlife. And it's gotta be good. There's another conversation strategy. Alrighty then, let's see if I can project without a microphone. Where do you want me to just stop? Entertainment and nightlife are really essential to this crowd, and it is the entire package. And so the new branding for South Tahoe is absolutely spot on in terms of how we generally promote mountain destinations, how we generally promote resort mountain areas. So that is really quite excellent. The connections to nature, outdoor recreation in Tahoe South, your number one thing is the number one thing that matters to this crowd. You've got jobs. And that job offer is our number one way to connect. You've got seasonal jobs, you've got internships, you've got concerts and events. You've got environment with the asterisk, and that means environment, put anything after it. Don't greenwash, that won't work. They're really pretty skeptical and discerning, but they do respond favorably to environmental and sustainability systems. Your environmental management systems, which you've been keeping in the back, you need to lead with those with this generation, because if you don't, the assumption is you're hiding something. If you don't, the assumption is you're hiding something. But we're modest, we're shy, we don't want to go with that. It's, you know, it's who we are, it's deeper. If you don't, the assumption is you're hiding something. We've got a variety of school-related ways we can connect to these young people through classes, through clubs and friends, and through fundraising. And so I would encourage you to think very intentionally. Here's the math I like about California. At any given time in California, about 7% of the population is in higher education somewhere. We've got 209 points of contact and 3.5 million kids. Now, we should be able to figure out how to make it impossible for a California college kid not to know about these places, why they're special, and why sometime in their life they should come. In terms of accommodations, it has to be affordable, it has to be clean, it has to be attractive, and vintage is okay as long as the first two are met. So from a redevelopment point of view, I think your first big opportunity is to spiff your vintage as opposed to get rid of your vintage. And to promote your green stuff, I've already talked about that, and to look at multi-gen properties where we've got a lot of price points and we've got ways that 2 or 3 generations can travel together on their own money instead of their folks' money. From a repurposing and refining point of view, I think that means getting really, really serious about employee housing so we can make the job thing work for college kids, because you got them for life if you get them in their jobs. Figuring out something that is appropriate in a hostel-esque sort of a way for college kids, because they're going to spend their $200. They're not going to spend any more than that because they don't have it. And they're not going to go to a place where they have to spend all of it on lodging. But they will spend all of it. So if we can get a hostel-esque type, whatever the appropriate thing is here, to where $60 of the $200, they'll spend $140. They'll spend it on entertainment, they'll spend it on drinks, they'll spend it on recreation. They're going to spend their $200, but that's all they've got. So how y'all figure that out, I don't know, but that number is very, very remarkable. So it could be suites with little cubby sleeping spaces and big social space. It could be a true, serious hostel. I mean, we can stick 10 of these kids at $200 a night in a room. We got $2,000 a night. So we got to figure that part out together. Public transit will be important to continue working on that. And in terms of media and promotion, I got to tell you, website overhaul is really, really nice. The Tahoe South is a great redo and relaunch. But I got to work pretty hard to see anybody other than Anglo in those photos. And I don't see anybody other than Anglo in any of those photos except the casino ones. So a little more diversity of entertainment, a little more diversity of photos, and a whole lot more diversity of spokespersons. It's going to be essential if you desire to connect with the entire future of California. Now, if you want to kind of be an Anglo enclave, you can do that, and you just do the opposite of all of this. And that will work, because here's the thing. These young people, there's going to be a lot of change, but there's going to be a lot of stability as well. And here's the real stability. Young people still hope and dream for exactly the same things people have always hoped and dreamed for. And if you can be part of that solution, if you can be part of that prosperity, if you can be part of that opportunity seeking that is absolutely the heart and core of every Californian, then you can be successful. We have all the gifts we need, and the gifts that we have been given are enormous. But the task ahead of us is enormous as well. So my suggestion is we think very intentionally about these markets. We figure out how we want them, and oops, this is our The best gift of all, and I mean this sincerely, is the much maligned millennials. Baby boomers say such horrible things about all millennials except their own children. This generation is the most remarkable generation ever. They share our hopes and dreams. They are kind, they are hardworking, they are wonderful, and they want to help. And I'll tell you a little growth story, and then I'll wrap mine up, because it's just my little personal, what do you do when you're too old, but you're not ready to give up the game? And you go back and I just said, what do you want to do? So off we went. We now have a community program, or a field school program, where we go back out into the community to try to help in whatever way makes sense. Do a lot of community stewardship, do a little bit of citizen science, a lot of community engagement, a lot of communication, a lot of conference management, a little bit of consulting, as in they tell us, and a little bit of custodial cleanup, make it look better work. have grown from 5 to 500 in 5 years. Now that's a kind of growth curve we'd all like to see for certain segments of our market, and we found a way to connect with the hopes and dreams of just about every type of kid at Chico State. Because we want to help California thrive, and this generation wants to help California thrive. We tend to focus our efforts around byways, trails, and transit, habitat restoration, and hospitality and event management. But there are many, 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 many college kids that will do other things as well. We want to share their talents with you because this is an incredibly talented generation. And we want them to make connections with you as professionals because you are wise and you can help them become better. And how things interrelate because they've led fairly isolated and siloed lives in some respects. And they're still trying to figure out how these things fit together. And because at the end of the day, they have an enormous commitment to sustaining all kinds of systems, not only our environmental systems and our natural systems, but our way of life systems and the things that we've enshrined in our founding documents that talk about life and liberty for all people in all places. I get your sons and daughters, as in you gift them to us for a couple, 3 or 4 or 5, or if the economy's bad, 6 or 7 years. And it's an enormous privilege, and it's an enormous gift. And I'm here to say I thank you for that. I could not do what you do on the front lines. But what I can do is try to work with your sons and daughters for a couple of years and get them ready to come back to you as the young adults they are destined to be, the young professionals they are destined to be, and actually the folks that are going to lead us forward. So I will leave you with my best wishes. It is hard when you've got the inventory that you've got, the room nights that you must fill. It's hard to be thinking about 15 years out when you're thinking about 15 months out or 15 days out. But try to take a little bit of your bandwidth, just a little bit, and think about which of these 3 markets you can help bring to Tahoe South, and how in doing that you can plug into the hopes and dreams of all Californians and all visitors to this area, and we will be successful. So that's my, I invite you to track me down if you're interested, but more importantly, I invite you to track these guys and gals down, because they are truly our treasure, and I'm delighted they're here with us, and I'm delighted you've hosted them so well. Thank you for your time and kind attention.